anonymous, we do have a live poll where your name will be anonymous. Should Attorney General Leticia James be fired? 61% says yes, make America great again. 34% says no, stop the political retribution and chaos. And 4% says it's Friday, it's too early for this. I plead the fifth. And thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Shout out to everybody. Stacia Crick says there is a woman who had to find attorneys in North Carolina to prosecute because that woman is an insurance attorney. She is not a prosecutor. And I think you're talking about, quote unquote, the new prosecutor that replaced Eric Schubert of the Eastern District of Virginia. Are you talking about Lindsay Halligan? Are you talking about her? Is that who you're talking about? Because a number of people did state that critics that is, especially Democrats, they stated that she is not qualified to prosecute anybody. Okay. Now, this is what people are saying. Okay. Now, I will say this. And I forgot to mention this. That's why I said I want to take it back. When it comes down to Attorney General Leticia James, who has officially been indicted for mortgage fraud yesterday, she is looking at, if she is found guilty of these, of this indictment, of these charges, she's looking at a maximum penalty of 60 years in federal prison and additionally a fine of upwards of $2 million. Okay, so this is a lot. Okay, this is not nothing to play with. And I hope these politicians, take heed to what's going on. You need to find time to come together and stop pointing fingers and blaming people, because I'm sorry, I don't think anybody wants to end up in prison 60 years, and let alone pay a fine of $2 million. And that is what Leticia James is looking at if she is found guilty of this indictment that was announced yesterday. Okay. And thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to everybody in the live. Someone said, how many people are being affected by the shutdown? See, this is what makes me think you don't live here. I don't know. I'm not going to say their name. I'm not going to say the person's name that's in the chat. Okay. But my whole thing is, why ask certain questions? Like, it's like certain questions you should know, right? When someone says, oh, well, how many people here are being affected by the shutdown? My question is, are you speaking of, like, are you talking about here in the chat, or are you talking about here in America? That's my question, because I'm just like, come on now. Because for those that don't know, and I'm standing on this, and I'm saying this, it affects everybody one way or the other. Even if it doesn't affect you directly, I promise you it's going to affect someone that you know, family-wise or friend. It's going to affect someone that you know. So thank you guys for coming in. Okay, you say Narice says it's a question. Are you saying it a question for everybody in the chat? So Narice wants to know who in the chat is affected by the shutdown. That is what Narice in the chat is asking people in the chat. Ghostface says, hello, Ghostface. Thank you for coming back. Ghostface says, shutdown has little effect on the people. Shout out to Ghostface. No problem, Narice. I just asked it for you. Okay. Anybody in the chat is there anybody in the chat that is, or they feel that they have been affected by this shutdown? Now, I'm going to answer that question for myself, Narice. Okay. I think this is your first time commenting on this platform. I'm not sure, but I have been affected by the shutdown due to a relative that is currently on life support. So people have to understand when it comes down to this shutdown, it did affect people who are recipients of Medicaid. it did also affect not only recipients of Medicaid, it did also affect people who are in the military, veterans, as well as um federal government workers. So thank you guys for coming in. Joy says I am. Joy says I am. And this is why, I want people to understand this. And that's why I say it plays a factor. Okay. It plays a factor on people. Right. And this is why I have to tell people, I want to make sure I reiterate this no matter what. Please don't get so frustrated and you feel like you're alone. You feel like, that you just feel like just giving up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever feel like you're alone. Don't ever put yourself in that dark element, that dark space. Okay. And like I stated, it has affected me personally. I do have a relative that is currently on life support. Um, the fact it's a lot of things that I have been through. I'm not going to say too much, but I did say last live that I had a family member that I witnessed hit code blue 5 times. Prior to this current relative of mine is on life support. So each time that I've gone through things, and I noticed this, each time that I've gone through things, I have, found ways to deal with it. Okay. And the way I deal with it, especially now, I have to, tell myself positive words, be grateful that I wake up every day. Be grateful that I'm able to do what I'm doing right now, which is what I'm able to talk. I'm able to see, watch, touch, feel, eat, drink. I'm able to do certain things that I feel a lot of people take for granted. I'm able to do certain things, right? I repeat that a lot of people now take for granted. Because even when I mentioned what happened to Judge Diane Goodstein in South Carolina, that's why I say, you can have all the money in the world, something can happen that can take all that away. Because in her case, she ended up losing her house and having 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 of her family members get hospitalized. So my prayers goes out to her. My prayers goes out to anybody that's going through going through, I don't call it, some people look at things like, oh, I'm going through hard times right now. No, you have to change the train of thought and say, I'm going through a blessing right now. Because whatever you're going through in life, I don't care, whatever you're going through in life, there's always light at the end of that tunnel that appears to be nothing but darkness. So even right now, when it comes down to this government shutdown, don't feel like, oh my God, oh my God. No, keep moving forward. Don't give up. And this is why I have the utmost respect when it comes down to, parents, when it comes down to not only parents, but even when it comes down to senior citizens, when it comes down to working class people, when it comes down to individuals, period. Why? Because if you are an individual that has been through something and is currently going through something, but you are moving forward and not giving up, I have the utmost respect. Okay. Now, when it comes down to the fire, because now I'm seeing the comments. Daryl says, who are you blaming for the fire? According to the reports, there is no evidence of arson. Yes, you're absolutely right, Daryl. My thing is this, right? How did that fire come about? Because she lost everything. And I do feel that this is making noise as far as being put out in the media because of what Judge Diane Goodstein did back in September by doing a temporary block on the release of South Carolina voter registration data. Okay. So I do believe that was one of the reasons, this is all making noise. And why somebody personally, wanted me to talk about that particular matter. But thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Grim. Thank you so much. Angel Rodriguez says, thank you to God. I came out the dark tunnel. Amen. Amen to that. And thank you guys for coming in. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to everybody in this live. I'm trying to find you, Angel, so I can highlight that. So I want you guys to understand, don't give up no matter what you're going through. Move forward. Okay. And I have to keep reiterating this moving forward, especially during this shutdown, right? Because I know, people can, it's a lot going on. And I hope Congress don't get too comfortable while they're sitting there making over 6 figures a year on their salary. And mind you, their pay has not been froze, okay, during this government shutdown. And shout out to Timberwolf. God is great. I see you now. I see you. Let me highlight you. Timberwolf, God is great, says, hi, Graham, and hello, Timberwolf, God is great. God is great all the time. Calvin says, we can't see the tunnels in, but God is waiting there. Shout out to Calvin. And thank you guys for coming in. I just want to, I want to, reiterate this because I don't want people to fall for what, some media outlets put out, as well as how certain members of Congress are currently presenting themselves as, part of more of the problem than a solution. Okay. So, let's move forward. Let's move forward and be the solution. And thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Grim. In the meantime, in between time, yes, we do have a live poll. And the live poll is, should Attorney General Leticia James be fired? 62% says yes. 34% says no. 4% says, I plead the fifth. It is too early. It is a Friday for this. Okay. And thank you guys for coming in. Had a great live. Now, as far as an update, I'm glad when it comes down to my loved one. I did have to, I'm kind of frustrated with how healthcare, they look at certain things. How can I say it? It just seems as if when it comes down to healthcare, they're looking at what type of insurance you have, how much money you have first before they can address your illness. And I'm just kind of frustrated because the more and more I'm looking into my loved one, it's just so much. You guys, I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this or been through this with their loved ones or them personally on their own, but take care of yourself. And when I say take care of yourself, I'm not even just talking about your health, but have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. Why do I say that? Because when it comes down to my loved one, they have put things in order, but I don't think they put everything in order, because it's like I'm combating with the healthcare system right now when it comes down to their care. I have to say it that way. But on a good note, my loved one is still alive. They're on, even though they are on life support. They are, from my understanding, they do see my loved one getting better. But just please keep my loved one in your prayers. Just please do. Please, I beg of you. Thank you guys for coming in. In the meantime, in between time, let's get back to the talk. Sorry about that, but I just want to just say thank you guys. And also please keep my loved one in your prayers. Going back into the comments. Stacia says, in the situation, you cannot blame the Democrats. She also says Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, could reopen the government now He also could go ahead and let the new Democrat Congressperson be sworn in so that she can vote to let the Epstein file come out. Whoa, Stacia, whoa. And shout out to Joy, shout out to Tiny Teacup, shout out to Timberwolf. God is great. Timberwolf God is great says, I just asked AI. They want 1.5 trillion in increased in increased spending. Look it up. Are you talking about what the Democrats? Are you speaking about the Democrats as far as them wanting that ACA to be extended? Is that what you're talking about? Timberwolf God is great. Let me see what you're talking about. And shout out to everybody in the live. And that's fine. Tiny Teacups. Like I said, I just want to just give you guys an update because I have been transparent about what's going on, okay, in my life. Okay. I'm trying to be more transparent. This is therapeutic to me. I know it sounds a little odd, but I have to get my mind, going, move forward no matter what. And the way I deal with what I'm going through, because child, I'm going through it. Woo, woo. But the way I deal with things, I like to write. And also, when I lost my other loved one, my relative, who passed away, I learned how to actually do nails. I know it sounds a little odd, but if you go into my other videos, I might pull it up. I might pull it up in another live. But when I was going through that time when I witnessed my loved one hit code blue 5 times, I promise you, thank God I have a mother. Thank you, Jesus. Like I literally was like practicing doing my nails. Like literally, when I say doing nails, I mean actually like a real nail technician at home doing my nails, practicing on my mother. And it's like every time I went to visit my loved one, I cannot make this up, I did my nails a different set every time. And even so much to the nurses, the nurse and the staff, they'd be like, let me see your hands, let me see your hands. And it's like that was the way I got through that. Right? I got through that episode. Now when it comes down to this particular loved one that is in life support, the way I'm dealing with it is, moving forward no matter what. Just like I moved forward with my relative that I had lost that's no longer here. I move forward by learning how to do nails. I'm not even making this up. And it's funny because a lot of people were asking me, they thought I spent $300 on my nails. They thought I spent all this money on the nails. I said, I had it. Are you crazy? But, it taught me, how to learn how to do nails and be more self-sufficient, independent, and in doing certain things. Now, I'm not saying, you have to be self-sufficient on anything, everything. No, you might. My cousin would always tell me, when I lost my loved one, told me that you have to be, sometimes you have to take that pride to the side, and it's okay to ask for help. Me, I don't like asking people for help. I just didn't like ask people for help. Not when I say ask for help, I'm talking about on the levels, like levels. It's levels to it. Levels of the sense. For me personally, I come from, since not that many people in here, I just said I come from where I'm the only child. I had older parents. Okay. So for me, I literally had to tend to my parents. Okay. Tend as far as taking care of them. And I didn't have no aunts, no uncles, I ain't have none of that. Okay. Heck, I was born as the only child. So coming from that aspect, I'm the type of person, some people would say, oh, you must be spoiled. Nope. I'm the type of person, like I stated, working 2 jobs and going to school. That's how I move when it comes down to dealing with my loved ones. Okay. So I just want to just, give that little transparency. And because of the things that I've gone through, it has kind of prepared me to be a little bit more stronger every time I go through stuff. And that's why I want people to understand. always keep moving forward. You got to keep moving forward. And I just wanted to say that, just kind of keep it, transparent. But thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Going back into the comments, my apologies. In the meantime, we're going to go to a brief commercial break. Tammy says Mike Johnson doesn't have the power to reopen the government. He does not. Okay. I think people, I think people tend to think that the House Speaker has so much power. But people have to understand at the end of the day, there's a Congress. Okay. And at the end of the day, okay, Mike Johnson can't do it alone. Now, yesterday, there was a lady who talked to Mike Johnson. I don't know if you guys saw the interview. She called in and begged Mike Johnson to bring the Congress back together. And if nothing else, to do a standalone bill that will at least keep people in the military as well as veterans, receiving, checks. But he stated firmly, he said, I can't do that because even if it's still going to be blocked. That's what he said. I don't know. Going back into the comments, Timberwolf God is great says, yes, it helped to have two brothers when our parents passed. Let me go back into the comments. And shout out to Timberwolf God is great. That's why I say for me, it's like, my biggest pet peeve on myself is I have walls up. So, if it's like you literally have to physically see something's going on with me before, you can say, do you need some help? Because it's like, I don't like asking for help. I just don't. I've seen too many people get screwed over. And when it comes down to my loved one that's on life support right now, my loved one has done so much. And when I tell you my loved one did so much for people, this person made sure someone finished college. This person made sure not only this person finished college, is a social worker. This person actually went out of their way to provide their money, their furniture for people in their family. And the mere fact that this loved one has nobody now, I'm so over it. And when I say nobody, it's like I said, me, as well as somebody else. I don't want to mention their name, but it's like I'm the only one that has visited this loved one, and I'm just overtaken at the fact, you can do so much for people. And here is my loved one on life support, and no family member has visited them but me. Thank you guys for coming in. And that's why I say, whatever you go through, don't give up. Just keep going. Be the change. Keep going. And no, it is not. It is, there's always somebody good out there. Everybody's not an enemy. And I know one of my cousins had told me that, like, sometimes you have to put that pride to the side, as they say. It's a lot of people out there. Shout out to Timber Wolf, God is great. Shout out to Tiny Teacup. Shout out to Joy. And shout out to Angel. It's people out there, they say, okay, you're not alone. It's okay. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're here to help. And but for me personally, I always say, always move forward, right? Always move forward no matter what you're going through. Timberwolf, God is great, says, they have you and you have been doing good things for her. You're a great woman. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, the things that my loved one is going through, I'm just kind of like bestowed. Angel Rodriguez says, cold-hearted folks. And that's why I say, me, I'm the type of person, I try to look I try to look at the good. And when I say the good, even if it's that cold-blooded hearted enemy, to help me move forward. I can't have bitterness and hatefulness in my heart, because that doesn't help me. It hurts me. So you know how people say you have to forgive? Yes, you have to forgive, but you forgive to help yourself. You forgive to help yourself move forward, right? So that's why I say I try to see the good. I try to, if nothing else, I try to do good for myself. And for myself, doing good is being the voice, is being there for people like my loved one right now who's on life support. So thank you guys, and shout out to Timberwolf. You get it. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to everybody. Tammy says, I was blessed to be able to care for my mother-in-law, and her sister for years before they passed. And Tammy, shout out to Tammy. Now, I would say this: when you do things like that, you will be blessed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you will be blessed, and the blessings will come when you least expect it. That's why for me, patience is key. Sometimes things will just happen when it's meant to happen. And I don't try to, force things at this point, because it's like I'm not finna. It's like life is too short to be stressing over things you have no control of. Calvin says, and my prayers goes out, and I salute people like you, Tammy Pierce, for being there for your mother and mother-in-law and your sister. I'm telling you right now, the things that you do for people, especially when you don't even ask, like, it will come back to you tenfold when you do good. Especially when you do good and you don't even, speak of it. You just do it. Thank you guys for coming in. Kevin says, we are all here for a purpose. Somebody's watching. You're a good example, and I appreciate that. And you guys are a good example. I want to make sure I emphasize that. The fact that you guys come on this platform and that you are a voice, that you don't. I'm telling you, everybody can't come in the chat. Some people are scared, especially what's going on now. But, I commend the fact that you guys are able to not only come in the chat, but to have an open dialogue like adults and not be afraid. And don't be angry. Some people just come in with anger. But thank you guys for coming in. Salute to everybody. Kevin says, amen, facts. Amen, facts. Me, Alfonso. Alfonso says, Leticia James committed a crime. As such, she committed a crime. She should have special treatment. What? Are you saying she should not have special treatment? Calvin says, you're helping us too. Oh, I appreciate that. That's why, I don't, it's, you guys, see different platforms where they're like, oh, the hell with Biden or the hell with Trump. No, like, let's just come together. Let's just have an open dialogue and, have conversations as far as both, Democrats, Republicans. Like, come on now. Like, life is too short to sit there and point fingers at one person. Because I'm standing on this. Trump, you can't blame this all on Trump. You can't blame all this on Joe Biden. You can't. I mean, just think about how many presidents we've had here in this beautiful place I call America, right? You can't just sit there and blame all of the issues on one or two presidents. I can't allow it. Thank you guys for coming in. Tammy Pierce says, thank you. I was lucky to be able to do that. I really got to know my mom and am so thankful for them. And, that's why I say, always cherish, and shout out to Tammy, always cherish the moments that you have with your loved one. Always cherish not only the moments that you have with your loved one, but cherish the moments that you're here on earth. Right? That's why I say, when I wake up, I thank God. Be grateful. I'm grateful I woke up. I don't care. I don't care if I'm living in a box, okay? A cardboard box, okay? Because money does not bring happiness. I repeat, money does not bring happiness. You are the captain to your life as far as happiness. That's why I say when I wake up, I thank God that I woke up. I thank God that I'm blessed to, live to see today, this Friday. But thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Hit that like button, subscribe to the platform. Now here's my personal view. I do feel that Congress needs to be changed. This is my personal view on it. Just like Senator Adam Schiff has reintroduced this darn act, okay, when it comes down to controlling the president or limiting the actions of the president, I do feel that the House of Congress needs to be reformed. And one of the reforms I, would request is at any time there is a shutdown, just like people, civilians, and citizens here in America are affected, House of Congress, their salary needs to be frozen as well. Their checks needs to be frozen as well. I really feel if their checks were frozen, just like a number of these federal government employees' checks are temporarily frozen right now. They're going to work without pay. Okay. If the Congress, if their checks was looking like this now, I guarantee you they would have not blocked for the seventh time yesterday. They would have not blocked the quote unquote, let's call it for what it is. They would have not blocked the House passed bill to reopen the federal government. They wouldn't have blocked it. Why? Because their checks would have been frozen as well. So when it comes down to reform, I think everybody needs to be reformed at this point. Because if Congress cannot sit down and, come to some type of, resolution right now, everybody's at fault. Everybody's at fault. All of them. And thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Shout out to everybody. Hit that like button, subscribe to the platform. Nari says, congratulations to Maria Corina Machado on winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Let me look that up. Shout out to Narice for giving the news. Let's look it up. Because for those that don't know, President Trump said he would be disappointed if he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. But let's look it up while we are here live as far as who. Yes. For those that don't know, this is just came in. Shout out to Narice in the live. Let me highlight that. Shout out to Narice. Narice says when it comes down to the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, it goes to Venezuela's Maria Corina Machado. She was awarded this today. She is a Venezuelan political opposition leader. And according to her, it states for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. And salute to Maria Corina Machado. These are things that, we need to have more people like this when it comes down to unity, when it comes down to, I speak on that. I speak on, having people come together. And when it comes down to this, and shout out to Narice for the announcement. Yes, congratulations to the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. This was announced today on Friday. And it is also added that in the past year, Ms. Machado has been forced to live in hiding, despite serious threats against her, she has remained in Venezuela, a choice that has inspired millions. When authoritarians seize power, it is crucial to recognize courageous defenders of freedom who rise and resist. And shout out to her, because this is why I don't approve. Well, I'm not gonna say approve. I just don't agree when it comes down to individuals. Like what they speak about here in America. They say, "Oh, I don't like Trump. I don't like how this current government is going." And you have individuals such as Ellen DeGeneres, as well as Rosie O'Donnell. They just completely left America altogether. And when it comes down to Venezuelan, Miss Maria Machado, she didn't leave Venezuela, even though, she has had, threats. She still is being an advocate when it comes down to freedom, when it comes down to achieving peace, speaking on peace, right? And this is why, I tell people, well, I say this on this platform, be the voice. Be the voice. And thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Ground. Black, what do you call me? Somebody's laughing. Black, thank you for coming in. Black says, I hope the shutdown stop until next Christmas. Wait a minute. Black. Oh my God. Black says, I hope the shutdown stop until next Christmas. Oh my goodness, Black. Thank you guys for coming in. Shout out to Black. Hello, Georgia Maniac. Georgia Maniac says, thankful for another day to do something for someone. You're teaching us that. Amen. Shout out to Georgia Maniac. Yes, be the change. Be the change. And on that note, hit that like button. Subscribe to the platform. You're listening to Politic Ground. This is a platform that welcomes everybody. Thank you so much for coming in. Shout out to everybody that is in the live. Thank you so much for coming in. In the meantime, in between time, as always, before I end the live, I will read the disclaimer. Before I do, let me go back in the chat. Tammy Pierce says she's a very powerful advocate for the people of Venezuela. And this is why, shout out to the Reese for giving that announcement in the live of the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. And for those that don't know, the person that has received the Nobel Peace Prize, it was announced today, Friday. Venezuelan Maria Corina Machado. It was announced that she will receive the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela, and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. And this is why I tell people here in America, be grateful, be appreciative that you live in a country that, has democracy, that you live in a country where you can speak your views and opinion and not have to worry about being in hiding or, being attacked for what you speak of, right? A lot of, people take that for granted here in America. A lot of people take for granted, those quote unquote beautiful amendments of the Constitution, right? And salute to Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela. Thank you guys for coming in. You're listening to Politic Graham. Shout out to everybody in the live in between in between time. Shout out to Black. Black says they can all be singing I'll Be Home for the Christmas. Oh my goodness. Black, are you serious? Black, so wait a minute. Pause. Black, you want this shutdown to last until 2026 Christmas, Black? Oh, Black. Shout out to everybody in the comments. And hello, Chrissy. Calvin says, peace, not hate. Prissy says, we are the only free country in the entire world. I travel the world. I know it to be true. We take it for granted so much for the true liberties we have. Yes. And it's somebody, I'm not gonna say their names, but it was one person. I know they're not listening. It is what it is. But it was one person. They tend to travel a lot, okay? And they travel to a certain area because they don't like the Western, their words, they don't date or like Western hemisphere women, okay? So with them, when they go out of town, okay, they go to certain areas. I said that way. I'm not gonna say the specific areas that they visit, but when they come back, they always talk about, how America is this and America is that, is this. But my thing is this, right? Me personally, I love my country. I love the fact that I'm blessed to, speak my truths, speak my views, speak my opinions, and not have to worry about, being threatened. But I will say this, okay? If this current Congress and government continues to be the issue as far as the blame game, people are wondering, where do I stand when it comes down to my right to vote? Where do I stand when it comes down to not only my right to vote, but where do I stand when it comes down to my freedom of speech? So this is why, I want the Congress to be an advocate of solution, not the rhetoric. Yes, Tammy. Tammy says must be passport bros. Well, I don't know. I mean, the person I'm talking about, they have already stated, their views when it comes down to Western hemisphere women. Okay, period. They have stated, comments when it comes down to the things that they don't like about here in America. But my thing is this, okay? Every country has their issues. No country is just crystal clear perfect. Okay? No country. Okay, I'm not gonna say this country. Well, unless there is a country that has the best healthcare system. Okay, there is one country that has the best top-notch healthcare. According to reports, everybody in a specific country, they do have health insurance. Okay, now on a healthcare wise, I give you that, yes, but no country is just outright perfect in all fashion and form. No country is that. It's not. It's not. And Tim, yes, no shade. Like I said, no shade. The person, they feel what they feel about America. If you feel how you feel, that it is what it is. That's how you feel. But I would say this: when it comes down to me personally, I love the country that I was born in, that I was raised in, that I currently live in. I love it. Okay. So, everything has issues. This country does have a lot to work on. That is true. Okay. If this country was so perfect, we would not be going into day 10 of a shutdown. So, this is true. But I want people to understand this, that at the end of the day, don't hold your anger so much at whatever's going on. Don't hold it and put it out on everybody. Don't put it out on everybody because of what's going on. Whatever you are angry at, don't put your anger out on just a random person because it's not worth it. If you can read between those lines that I just said, it's not worth it. But in the meantime, before I end this live, as I always do, I always end the live with quote unquote reading the fair use copyright disclaimer. And it goes a little bit something like this. Thank you guys for coming in. And I always read this to protect the quote unquote to protect the platform. And it goes like this. Okay. Quote unquote, fair use copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use copyright for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, commenting, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So thank you guys for coming in. Hit that like button. Black says there is one country with the fastest internet access. Chris is saying, are you saying South Korea? Gavin says, angry but sin not. Bibles, yes. Don't commit a sin just because you're upset. It ain't worth it. Thank you guys for coming in. Al says, we love Trump and America. Question, Black, what country are you talking about when you say there is one country with the fastest internet access? What country are you speaking of, Black? Chrissy says, thank you. You have a great day, and you too. And also, I do have a live poll. Okay, we're gonna see what this poll is before I end it. Should Attorney General Leticia James be fired? 62% says yes.